Hello, and thank you for joining the Champion Within podcast, your premier go-to spot for unlocking your winning mindset. Whether you're an athlete looking to elevate your game to the next level, a coach leading the charge, an enthusiastic parent cheering from the sidelines, or an educator molding young minds, the Champion Within podcast episodes are packed with value, sharing the tools and strategies to unlock your potential and rise to new heights. Hosted by mentor, coach, and mindset leader Kate McCauley. Let's sit back and enjoy today's episode while discovering your champion within. And now, here's Kate.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining us on the Champion Within. I'm excited to share this guest with you today. We had the opportunity to chat in a group setting with the Penn State athletes, and it was actually the highest listened to episode in season 3. I thought maybe I could bring some of the athletes back and we could talk one-to-one, learn a little bit more about their story, and just see where the conversation goes. Today, I get to hang out with Lexie, who is a Penn State volleyball player. She has a lot of cool things that she's going to share with you today. You may have heard a little bit of her story. If you have not, definitely go back to season 3. I can actually put that in the show notes so you can hear some of that. We'll kind of go back a little bit to her journey, but you want to go check out that episode too if you haven't listened. I'm excited to have her here today. I think I'm actually going to learn some things, and I think all of you are going to be interested to just hear about her journey and learn from her as well. How you doing today, Lexie?
Good. Cold out.
It is cold.
Right.
Yeah, it is. I am not a fan of the winter. I'm always like, all right, one snow, even if it's not a lot, I'm done with it. It is what it is, I guess. I hope for early spring all the time. Doesn't always happen, but
Oh yeah, and the wind's been crazy. So
wind is rough. I try to get outside every day because I work from home, and the struggle is real. I have to force myself these days with the wind.
It's cold.
Yeah, it is. But if I stay in the house, I just get in this like, I need a little bit of outside time. But yeah. So, well, I'm so glad that you are here today with me because I love chatting with all of you. I think you had a unique journey that we didn't even really go deep into. We touched upon it a little bit. You were a military kid and you ended up at Penn State Brandywine. The way you got there and on the volleyball team, we talked about in the first episode that basically you just kind of walked on, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Before we even get to playing volleyball, let's go back to just being that military kid and maybe thinking a little bit about that and sports and just school life in general. Was that something that was always a part of growing up for you, I assume? Or tell me how that is in your world.
So actually, before we went to Korea, I was in South Carolina from second grade until I was in 7th grade and moved to Korea. And at that point, I was actually a full-time gymnast, competitive gymnast. And the military life was there, but I still went to a public school in Sumter, South Carolina. It was very much like people that grew up there their whole lives. It wasn't as much military. And then my dad put in it's kind of like a raffle, but a PCS, which is when you move. And we won. So that's when we ended up moving to Korea. And that's when it more became full-time part of my life because obviously we were overseas in a foreign country. And I went on-base military school and I competed with other military kids. So I met a lot more people that were fully immersed in that military life moving. I had friends that would move like every 2 years kind of, just because that's the culture.
What grade did you move?
I moved in the 7th grade, in the middle of it actually. Yeah, like wintertime, 7th grade when I just turned 13.
Okay.
So 2015.
Okay. And you probably shared some of this with us on the first episode, but do you have siblings?
Yeah, I have one. I have one little brother. We're pretty close. He's only like a year and some younger than I am.
Okay. So, and what was it like for you? Were you excited to make this move? I mean, I'm sure there was a lot of different emotions, but could you share a little bit about how that was for you?
Yeah, so because we got lucky and that was only like the second time we had to move. I was pretty angry at first and I was like, I was so young that I didn't really know what Korea was. So I was like, where are we going? Why are you taking me away from my friends? I was in love with gymnastics. That was what I saw for my entire life. So I was like, what the heck? I was pretty mad. But after the first like 6 months to a year, I kind of opened up more. And then I met people that had already been there for a while. And I was like, oh my God, this is kind of cool. And I opened up to it more. And now, like, I would never take it back. I would go back if I could and visit. I love it over there. It was a great experience. It taught me a lot about other people
I
and
love
where people come from and like cultural things and all that. So at first, it was not, I just turned 13. I was,
her.
raw teenager. And I was like,
I
this
mean,
is
yeah, I
not
would be a
cool.
little surprised
Like,
if you right away were like, yeah, let's do this. Because at
yeah, yeah.
seventh grade, you're at that moment where I love my friends more than my parents. I mean, developmentally,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
not love. I should say that are influenced more by them. And
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
an age where it's tough to say we're going to move, especially if that wasn't a part of
The
the
plan.
norm for your military world.
Yeah.
You're doing that every 2 years, as you had mentioned, some of the other people were used to almost.
Yeah.
That's tough. I love that once you got there, you were able to adjust and, now you can see in reflection how much
Yeah.
when you did get there, was there opportunity to do gymnastics or other sports? What did you end up getting involved in?
I did try to stick with gymnastics at first, but it was kind of rough. There was only because I had to find a coach on bait, like just through networking and things. And we did find one. She was amazing, but it was hard. She also had kids and things. And the closest gym that actually had equipment was like 40 minutes away. I could only train like once or twice a week. And then I couldn't go by myself. It's a hard and dangerous sport. And if I wanted to learn new things and didn't already know how, if the Korean coaches couldn't communicate that, then it got difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of just got to a point where it was like, okay, maybe let me try new things, see what I like. And then I kind of just got involved in a lot of different things. I did softball. I actually didn't start playing volleyball until I was a freshman in high school, but I did softball mostly. And then I also did cheerleading because it was similar. And I did basketball. And I did do like a wrestling for like a week. And then I was like,
For a
no,
week.
like,
Let me try this.
yeah.
Like, nah,
I was like, no, so I kind of just, I talked to my parents and they convinced me. They were like, it's hard to keep training. Gymnastics is a sport where you have to do it every day. It's the kind of sport where when I did get hurt and I was doing it full time, that week really sets you back a lot more than you would think. It just wasn't realistic. That's when I kind of started trying everything else. And my dad and my parents both of them are very athletic. My mom played basketball her whole life, and my dad does like softball and all kinds of other things. So they
okay.
kind of helped and pushed. So
Yeah, so you got to learn a lot of different things, of course, with the new culture and then getting involved because maybe you didn't have the opportunity in some ways with the gymnastics, but you did have opportunities to try other things. That was pretty cool.
yeah.
What would you say was your biggest lesson related to that sports journey when you
Mhm.
had to make that shift into, all right, I have to try some other things. Maybe gymnastics
Yeah.
isn't going to be my main focus anymore.
I think looking back, I would say one of the things I learned most was even though in that moment it feels like that's long term end all be all, I was literally thinking about college gymnastics, even at that age. Sometimes letting go and trying new things actually benefits you more and opens you up to more opportunities than you thought were available.
But
Because even my dad, when I was a gymnast, like after I quit, he told me, I'm actually kind of glad because that's a lot on your body and it would have had a lot of long term. And I didn't understand. And now I look back and I'm like, I get why, and it opened me up to Brandywine. I don't think, as good as I was, gymnastics is very competitive. I don't think I've ever would have gotten the opportunities that I have now if I didn't learn to let it go and grow from that.
right, yeah, in some ways you had to be there to get where you are now.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah. I think your dad's right. I have gymnasts that I work with and some people might listen who are gymnasts or involved, but it is tough on your body,
Yeah, it's
and
hard.
it's like you said, you really do have to train every day. And I mean, different types of training, but if you are injured or miss a week, it makes a difference, which means you're working very hard every single
Full time. Yeah.
Not that other sports aren't working hard. I don't want people saying such as like, we work hard. People start getting different.
Yeah.
It's a different type of training. I was not a competitive gymnast. I think I took like a couple little classes just because my mom signed me up for things, and my daughter did the same when she was young. But I know competitive gymnasts and have worked with them, and I mean, it's next level. The things they do. Yeah, I'm always in awe of their ability, and your dad's not wrong. That strain on the body is no joke. So in some ways, you find the silver lining. So when you were on the military base and you started playing the different sports, so then you're in middle school, was it traditional high school on the military base? And did you play other schools, how you would here in the States?
Yeah, so for regular season, it pretty much was. We just played different schools than we would play over here. We would play a couple international schools, and then there's 2-3 other military bases, a little distances that we would also play. The only thing that I would say is different was we called it Far East, but it's basically like the championship type of thing.
Okay.
Is that we would travel to like Japan.
Oh, wow.
So that we could also play, because it's called the DODEA, Department of Defense schools, like those kinds of things.
Okay.
So then we would also play the other military schools in like Japan. I remember there was one from Guam. So then we also got the opportunity to play other military schools that had the same kind. They couldn't play stateside, couldn't play other people, but
that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was cool.
Yeah. So you would travel almost like playoffs and championships. If you made it to that level, then you would travel there as a team. And did your whole family go if you made that?
My family never went.
Okay.
But I'm sure families could if they wanted to.
It was more
they could just come. Yeah, it was more just like us as a team, and then we'd have like a coach and another teacher come with us, and they would look over it. Yeah, pretty much. Okay. Yeah.
That was cool. So did you go to Japan? Where did you end up going to play with different teams?
Yeah, so I went to Okinawa once, which is like the super sunny part of Japan. And then I think I went 2 other places. I can't remember the exact names, but one for cheer. We actually won softball one year. That was super fun. So yeah, I think I went in total like 3 or 4 times, maybe 5.
Cool.
Yeah, just like different places to play.
Yeah, really cool. What would you say was your best memory? It's a similar journey, but very different than if you were playing, if a high school student was playing here. Did you have a fun memory or tradition that the teams did?
In Japan or just in general?
Just in general, or both, or if you had something, when you traveled.
Well, I remember one game specifically. It was volleyball. And I mean, I got to play with a lot of people from a lot of different places. I saw a lot of good talent. And I just remember one game. It was probably the most fun game of my life. We were down an international school, and they're way bigger than us, so they're known for being really good. And we were down, I think, 2-0. So we were going to lose. And then somehow we turned the entire game around. It was homecoming night.
Oh, wow.
I was supposed to walk the field because I won, like, I don't know, princess or something.
Okay.
And the principal came up to me and was like, you stay and play or you go walk. And I was like, I'm playing. Like, sorry. Like, yeah. And we won. We ended up winning. And we had so much fun. It wasn't, I guess, we were locked in to say, but we were just having so much fun. I remember I went down for something and like crawled out of the way, and we got the point. And I was like,
oh, that's awesome.
That was probably it, because nobody expected us to win, and we obviously weren't winning. And then all of a sudden we found some kind of drive and just started having fun, and it changed the entire game. So
I love that you just said we just started having fun and changed the entire game, because I think sometimes we forget that as athletes and as coaches. A lot of pressure in those games and situations. Sometimes the pressure we put on ourselves or people in the stands or the coaches. But if you could lean back into having fun, I love where you just said, I crawled out of the way.
I did.
It's obviously a core memory for you. And then somebody, I guess, saved it or made the point, there. So that's really cool. Now, did you end up if you were princess or homecoming queen or something?
Yeah, I think I was a sophomore, so whatever that, I don't remember exactly, but whatever the court is.
Or you just were like, that was over?
So I just went down to the field and got my little sash, and then
Gotcha.
they're like, "Oh yeah, Lexie's here," and because it's so small that everyone kind of knows each other in high school, so they're like,
Okay.
"She just won. They just won. Here she is." And but I didn't like walk or anything.
Yeah,
Like
you
I
were like,
was
whatever.
so
We
yeah
just,
no
yeah. Okay. That's crazy.
yeah no.
So you had mentioned they were so much bigger than us, and you said it's so small, everyone knew each other. What does that look like? Because sometimes different schools I work with, they'll say like, this is a big school district, this is small. And that means so many different things to people. So
Oh
when
yeah.
you're saying we were small, they were so much bigger, what do the numbers look like for your school?
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned that because I came here and someone said the same thing. I went to a small school, 150 in my class or 200. And I
In
was
your
like,
graduating class, 150?
well, that was what they said. And I was like, mine was 27. My graduating class was 27, and the year before us was 31, I think.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
so it's like when I say small, I mean like
Like
it's
a classroom.
small.
Like when I was in
Yeah,
school, we
like
had one class of 40 students sometimes.
yeah. So we had that, if not like less, for our graduating class. It was
Wow.
like 28 of us, 27. So
So of that, your graduating class, 27 or 28, so that would be the seniors. So freshmen through seniors, did you have one
yeah.
volleyball team? I mean, did they even have JV varsity or was it just one team?
So I think when I was there, it's just one team.
Okay.
And also, it's like we have to get participation because we're so small. It's hard to get because not all kids want to play sports.
I was gonna say, like, is that hard to
Yeah, like
find someone who plays volleyball?
yeah, some girls just come and learn as we go.
Sure.
But I think now they've gotten more. Every now and then they'll have like a JV when there's enough people. But it's
Right.
not it's not like a thing where every year there's JV and varsity. It's more depending on
Yeah.
who's here still, who's gonna play, that kind of thing.
When you were playing the other school, you said they were much bigger. What does that mean? What is much bigger than you? Because I mean, you were only 27 in your graduating class.
Yeah.
Is much bigger 50 or is it like 300?
I think I don't know the exact numbers, but it's more like what I would picture like a stateside school. Like they had
Okay.
they had a full JV, full
Oh,
varsity,
got it.
because they had kids, the international schools had kids from everywhere. I met a girl from England. I met a girl from France. They have kids everywhere. So they had way more people come and
Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
So they had more people to almost select their players from,
Yeah.
okay. Especially if they had enough for a JV squad and a varsity squad. I'm thinking too, you had said earlier that some people who were the military families, it was normal to maybe be somewhere for 2 years and go to a different location, depending on your assignment for your dad or whoever was the military parent for the family. Is that something that happened, I would assume, with the volleyball team and other sports teams? So let's say you were a sophomore and you're killing it in volleyball, and then
Yeah.
we don't have you as a senior. I mean, is that pretty common?
Yeah, that does happen quite a few times. We actually, one girl that played with us, she came in senior year, like her senior year, and that was the only year she played with us specifically.
Right.
She was somewhere else. So, yeah, I would say that does, and you kind of just have to adjust. We do know,
Sure.
yeah, when people are leaving, but it's still like, dang, we won't have her next year, but then you also get a new person, like, oh, okay.
Right. Yeah. I mean, in some ways, you could get lucky and a really great player rolls in, or you lose an amazing player. And I think in some ways it's a disadvantage if you're playing a school that has somebody who is there for 4 years and they're developing that player and they have that star, and vice versa. You have somebody who rolls in and is the star, so there's an advantage on that side. That's interesting. It just popped into my brain. I'm thinking here at, private schools, especially, they'll recruit kids to come,
Yeah.
from different places. So it's just interesting how that could definitely play a role on different sports teams if the, military bases are. But you do know we're here till this date and then we leave. So it's not like the team doesn't know.
Yeah, and we'll even hear stuff about other schools too. I guess that's kind of how we did our scouting.
Okay.
Other military schools, we hear like a rumor, oh, I think she moved, or
So
you know,
yeah.
she's still here, but I think she left already. Like,
Gotcha.
kind of like prep ourselves, I guess.
Are you a coach or parent looking to boost confidence, build resilience, and create a winning mindset? It's time to discover the champion within. I'm Kate McCauley, founder of The Champion Within, and I'm here to help you transform your mindset, reach your potential, and thrive in school, sports, and life. With 20 years of experience as an educator and a mindset specialist, I know what it takes to empower teams and individuals to step up, stay focused, and perform at their best. Book a free call with me today. Let's learn how the Champion Within programs can be customized to meet your needs. You can visit my site at shop.danunow.com, or even easier, go to the show notes, click on that link, and book your call. So how about the coaches? Are they military parents? Who are they on the base for you?
So usually for me, I had our school's teachers, usually was like the head coach, and then you could get parents to come and volunteer coach.
Okay.
So softball, our gym teacher was the coach. She was amazing, and she had a couple parent volunteers that she knew or people she knew played that would come in and they would also help us.
Okay.
And volleyball, we had a teacher as our head coach, and then we had two parents, I think, that would come in. My dad actually volunteered for a little bit, and they would come in and coach us on the team. So
love it. Are the teachers there on the military base, do they typically stay as a full career as a teacher there, or do they come and go as well?
I think that's more up to them. I don't know so many details, but I know I had the same teacher, the same gym teachers the entire time. The teachers, it's a little bit different, and they kind of get to decide and about their contracts and how long they want to stay and renewing it and things. But most of the teachers I know now, I think there's a lot of new teachers that if I went back, I wouldn't recognize as many. But a lot of teachers end up staying, even if not in Korea, they stay overseas. Because like the gym teacher I mentioned, they were in Korea for a long time. And instead of coming back, I think they're in Japan now.
For some reason, it just popped into my brain and thinking, I'm wondering, is this coach there for, 10 years and teaching and coaching?
Yeah.
Or do they just have, I'm going to be in Korea for, 5 years and then I'm going to go somewhere else. That could impact a program as well.
Oh, yeah.
Just very interesting. I'm curious now, thinking about your journey to Brandywine and when you decided to go to college. I remember you sharing with us that when you came here, you told me that you were staying with family that lived close to Brandywine so that you could go to school here. And when you came to the team, you basically reached out and you were able to jump in. I'm wondering if the skills that you gained coming into the military base, and it sounds like you were able just to adapt, girls coming in, out, different athletes, and the way that happened. Do you think that helped you become a part of the Brandywine program?
Yeah, I think so. My mom encouraged me. Being over there taught me a lot. Like, the worst I'm going to say is no. And also, because our team is so small, I played a lot of different positions. Mm-hmm. So I was confident that I might as well go, do it, adjust, meet these girls. The worst they're going to do is be mean.
Right.
I can handle it. And then it ended up being amazing. It just taught me, like I said in the last one, to take the risk and just kind of adjust as I go. Mm-hmm. As far as being completely new. And other people were new too. So that's kind of a comfort thing. Even though they were recruited, I was like, oh, I have to prove it. But then, think like you said, I thought back, I had to prove it every year on the military base because no one really knows. So it'll happen if it's meant to.
I'm wondering, do you feel like the people who are recruited at Brandywine and in general, if you have an opinion on this, do you feel like they still have to prove it every year and earn that spot?
I think that kind of depends on, I like to think yes. So even we recruited all our girls this year, but it was very clear that the coach said everyone's going to fight for their spot and whoever deserves it the most, even the returners. My spot was, I guess, in danger is a way to put it.
Right.
Girls came in and they were unbelievable. I'd be like, oh, okay, game on. I would like to think that, being recruited, there are some expectations, but you should still prove that you deserve the spot more than some. Because I think, especially being an athlete like that, it's more than just your skill. If you're recruited, you were recruited for a reason, and it's not just about the fact that you can play volleyball.
Absolutely.
So kind of just showing your personality a little and proving, hey, I can do healthy competition. I can play. I deserve it. Yeah.
You're living on campus, or are you living with family and commuting?
I have an apartment now with a couple of my friends.
Okay. You're coming from the military base and you come back to the States and you're here in the Philadelphia area, outside of Philadelphia. You're playing for the volleyball team And I'm not exactly sure who is all on the team, so maybe you need to share that too. But what was the biggest challenge dealing with this new environment, different things that weren't the same when you were maybe in Korea or South Carolina? Because I think that here in this area, we have sometimes a different vibe than other places that not everybody can handle. Some people are cool with it, and other people think like, whoa, people in this Philly area are a lot to handle. I'm wondering, were there challenges? What was the toughest part?
So before my previous couple of years, mostly here or like Delaware. A lot of people were from this area, Delaware, not far. But this year we actually had a couple of girls from kind of all over, like Maryland, Florida, and then other areas of PA. So not necessarily Philly, but I think we had one from Horsham. So that's like an hour, a little more diverse. But I would say the first, and not even specific, it's so weird, but like everybody speaking English and everybody knowing what I'm saying and me knowing what they're saying. So, if I hear comments about somebody, I'm like, oh, okay, I forget. I understand now. And just, I think the intensity of sports, not necessarily this one, but the intensity of people watching the Eagles, I was like, oh, wow. Like,
Oh, okay.
But in terms of volleyball, I think this year was easier because we were all kind of from everywhere. So, people would mention certain places and I'd be like, I have no idea what you're talking. Like,
you just couldn't relate to some of the different things.
But like other girls also were like, I live in Florida. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
so give me an example. What are they saying that you're like, what are you talking about?
Well, one I remember specifically when I first got here is the slang words like John. So they were throwing it around everywhere. And I was like, what is that? What is that? And they were like, it just means thing. You can use it for anything. And I was like, okay. Or hoagie. More so the language, or even just talking about certain cities that they knew had a reputation, or like, like people from, like my aunt, for instance, was like, she's from Aston, Brookhaven area. And she was like, oh, Upper Tide, that's our, like, we go against them in sports. And I was like, okay. Like,
right. I saw a reel on Instagram asking the men's basketball team at State College different words, and they were from all over the country. A lot of the words were from the Philadelphia area, even though they are in State College, and John was one of those.
Yeah.
Some of them knew, and people were like, well, that John, that thing, basically it can mean anything. I was laughing about that because people do use that in so many different ways. So I'm not surprised that one came up for you. And then the different towns, I was curious who was on the volleyball team and who you were hanging out with, because if you were in Delaware County, especially, or Philly, certain towns have reputations for things, or there's like, rival, teams, even youth sports programs are like this. And it's funny that your aunt would say like, oh, Aston and Upper Chi, I'm from the Ridley area. So Ridley, Interborough, different things where people would say, this is our big game. And it's funny. It goes generations back. People's grandparents will say it. Then hoagie, is it because people eat them a lot, or you just hear people talking about it?
Well, it's just, I have never called it that before. So my mom's from Maine. So in Maine, it's an Italian or a sub. And then, it's like, I don't know, I'm going to get a sandwich. And then from my roommate from Connecticut, she calls it a grinder. And I was like, what? So it's like a statewide thing to be called a hoagie. So I was like, oh, so it's not there's a difference between a sub and a hoagie. Are they not?
Oh, there's a difference.
Yeah.
So funny. That's so funny. What would you say when you're at Brandywine is a lesson that you learned there through athletics, just being involved in things on campus?
I think one of the biggest things I learned is, which is funny because I'm a military kid, but to give the new opportunities a chance and to open up. Because people move so often, I had a hard time opening up to people. I don't share a lot of personal stuff. And I think just learning that sometimes that little bit extra, or share something so then they can share something. And now you're like, so just learning to like give it an opportunity. Because at first at Brandywine, I was actually, oh my goodness, like, I don't know if I can do this. And then I met people like Maisha. And she helped me a lot, and just kind of like allowing people to support me.
And tell everyone who Maisha is so they know.
So she's our retention person. She deals with recruits. She deals with alum in the athletic department specifically. So she's there, and so any recruits will probably meet her because she's the one that does the tours and reaches out and stuff. And then she also deals with retention after you graduate, just making sure you have resources and about the alumni events for athletics specifically and all those kinds of things. She's there all the time.
And she's amazing. I went in to do a workshop and I met her briefly and we chatted a little bit.
Yeah.
She's really great.
Yeah.
And now are you saying that she helped you come out of that, reserved?
Yeah.
I guess I'll call it that you were holding back a little bit, that you didn't want to share about yourself. Did she help you do that?
So yes. And she was the one person that I didn't have to tell I was struggling.
How did she help you with that?
So she basically, and I had never heard of this before, but she asked me my middle name and then called me by that until I felt like Lexie again. And then when I felt like Lexie again, hey, how are you feeling today? Just every now and then, is Lexie back? And then eventually it was to a point where I was like, she's here. Lexie is back. I feel good. I
love that.
like I'm doing more. And just working in the athletic department too. I work with Jeff, Bobby, all of them. Mm-hmm. They're great. I can just reach out hey, I need help with this. Or I'll make fun of Jeff. I'll be like, Jeff, that block wasn't. And he's like, Lexie. I'm like, I'm kidding. I'm sorry. And kind of just knowing that I can, if I needed help or if I was struggling, I can reach out to them was a lot. Kind of opened me up. Oh, when she noticed I was struggling and a lot of other people didn't, I was like, wow, you guys care about your athletes here. And that's a big deal for me. Okay. And then I kind of got more comfortable even opening up to my coaches when I got injured this year, just about what was going on mentally, where normally I would just kind of push through and, try to deal with it and get over it and continue to do what I needed to do, where now I feel more comfortable being like, oh, it's normal here to open up a little more and no one's just going to leave in 2 years, basically.
In some ways, it sounds like you had to heal from that loss of people leaving you every 2 years.
Yeah, I guess in a way, yeah. You just kind of adapt to it. And then being here, it's like, oh, that's not normal. Everyone knows everyone for years.
Do you remember a moment or a story that Maisha noticed? And how did she get to the point to call you your middle name? Did she ask you some questions? Did she notice that something was going on with you?
So I don't she kind of just got to know me, my personality from when I obviously became on the volleyball team and I worked with them as soon as I started at Brandywine. So they knew who I was and the kind of person I was. And she kind of just one day was like, hey, come to my office when you have time this week. And I was like, oh God, I just started working. What could be wrong? Oh no. So then I went and
you dreaded, can you stop by my office?
Yeah, we were just in passing on campus. She was like, hey Lex, when you have time, can you stop by my office? I'm like, okay. So yeah. So literally I was counting down the minutes. I was like, oh no, I didn't do anything. When I got there, she basically was like, is everything okay? Do you miss your family? I could tell something's off. I just kind of was like, wow. And then, she just asked if I needed anything. And I was like, I don't know. I just opened up.
Yeah.
And then she was like, okay, well, why don't we try this? And then she was like, I'll call you this until you 100% feel like you're yourself again.
And did she give you any tips to help you feel like yourself? Or is there anything you did related to getting yourself back to, hey, this is Lexie, I'm here?
Yeah, so it was more so just, I think I mentioned in the last one too, that I really like supporting people and being there for people and whatever. And I had done it so much at that point where I was putting myself to the side a little bit. Mm-hmm. So just prioritizing, no, I don't want to do that day. I do want to do this. I'm going to get on top of my school. I'm going to just keep playing, even though, because freshman year I actually didn't play that much. Reminding myself, you'll get there, and kind of just starting to support myself a little more again and being okay with having a hard time, I guess, and learning I can still call my mom, even though she's in Korea. I can still talk to my dad and my brother. It's okay. And I went and saw my family a little more because they were so close. So I went because they make me feel good, and just being around them is better. So
I love that for you. I'm just going to tell the people who are listening right now, can you be like Maisha, please? All of you need to pay attention to the people around you. I'm not there with her in that office, but I'm going to guess that she is paying attention. She's paying attention to her athletes, their body language, maybe even some things that they're saying or not saying. And you as a coach, you as a parent, as a teacher, whoever is listening, maybe you're a teammate, slow down and pay attention and just ask, how you doing? Are you okay? And maybe it is that, can you stop by? And I know if I was the athlete, the teacher, the student, even if it was just anyone, like, can we talk? I'd be like, oh my God. And I would have all these things going through my brain. But the second part is important. Talk to them. And I heard, Lexie, I heard you say something, wow, they really care about me here. And you mentioned Bobby and Jeff too. I would love to hear from you. If there was a high schooler right now, whether they're a military kid, a high schooler here, anywhere in the States, what advice would you give that high schooler? Maybe they're a sophomore, junior, senior, anywhere, or maybe even a freshman starting to think about, I might want to play in college.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give to them when they're starting to look at where they want to go?
I would say, in terms of athletics, find a place where not necessarily that you'll get along, but you could find a home there. So it's not just about this athletic program wins. They win. Because, for volleyball, it was first year in a conference and it was a rough season, but it was so much more than that because of walking in the gym being like, yo, Maisha, Bobby, like Jeff.
Right.
Find a place where it's more than just the game, and also that when you play the game, you're not going to want to stop, if that makes sense. Like,
oh, that makes 100% sense.
It's about the game all the time, but even if you're in a program, I've seen girls that, their program isn't winning as much, and they were out there having the time of their life because of the people that they were around in the department and like all those things. Yeah, you want to win, but also know that you want to find somewhere where you can play and have fun and be yourself and enjoy it more than just, I won a game, but now I'm miserable because I have to go to practice. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you just want to be there. I actually interviewed Jamar, who's on the basketball team at Brandywine, and he had mentioned something about basketball in general, not even just Brandywine, that he knew he loved basketball because he just wanted to go to practice. He wanted to be at the games. He wanted to do the extra work after. And you're almost saying a similar thing about the college. You just want to be there. You feel like, I want to be here. It feels good. Even if, no one likes to lose, but even if you're not at a winning, season or on a winning team, or, even if you lose a game, you still want to show up. Of course, there's going to be tough moments. That's life, but I get what you're saying. And ironically, we joke about this all the time. I played basketball when I was called Penn State Delco, but it's Brandywine now. So Penn State Brandywine, but we were at I guess it was 2024 induction. And maybe it was the 2023 winners, but it was January of 2024, the Hall of Fame dinner. Bobby did an amazing job. I think there was a whole crew of people in charge of organizing it. But our coach from basketball was inducted into that, Brian Donahue. And the four of us, I think it was 4 or 5 of us went because a couple other people just couldn't make it. But we were terrible. Our basketball team was terrible. Our record was terrible. But the couple of years after us, actually the year after us, they started getting much better. And then they won the conference, like they were at State College at the championship games. Yeah, they were much better every year after we left. And we always joke like, oh, well, we were the ones to start building the program. But the memories and the lessons we learned there are things that were life-changing for us. And we still are the greatest of friends. Our coaches are people that we would do anything for. They would do anything for us. We went to his wedding. We were there at the Hall of Fame dinner, and we were a part of, our assistant coach was up there with the speech, and he mentioned some of us, and we were all like, why would you mention us? Because but we were, it was just a whole vibe. Like you said, we wanted to be there.
Yeah.
And we did win some games. We weren't like totally terrible, but we weren't great. Let's just put it that way. I would never change any of that. All the long days, the trips, and anyway, I think that that's a great piece of advice to give people who are looking. Of course, you want to win and different things like that. You want to, and everybody has their own list of what I want from college, but it is important to look at those other things because you don't want to be miserable.
Yeah, I agree. And you want to have a place to go. If I did have a bad day,
Yes.
straight to Maisha or even the trainer, and I'm like, dude, that was terrible. I was off, but this is
Right.
there. Like, I don't just have to sit on it. And then they'll just make jokes like, yeah, you were terrible. And I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. And it's good to have those honest conversations. I was impressed with you during our conversation many times, but you mentioned something about, I think it was Simone Biles actually, that in different mental health athletes that you had said, this is really important. And a couple times during our conversation, even just about, wait, what does this mean? And different things, I feel like you have woven it into almost who you've become and how it's important. What do you think about that with a coach or a team? What is the most important piece that you would say to a former version of yourself, that athlete that's coming in, or a coach that people need to pay attention to with the mental side of volleyball or sports in general?
I would say I think it's still kind of overlooked, but your mental impacts your physical more than any amount of exercise you'll do, I think.
Mm,
Even after I got hurt, it was a whole new ball game just trying to fight that. This isn't how I would have played. This isn't where I would have played. This isn't what I would have done. Ow, that hurt. Can't do that. Like,
right.
just like mentally, and even if you can't control it, just recognizing, oh, I'm struggling. And I think as a coach too, just being a safe space for that athlete to feel like they can come up and be like, I'm hurt, not hurt enough to where I can't play, but just being open about it and understanding that, like Simone Biles, she had what was called the spins, so she couldn't tell where she was in the air, and that's dangerous. And just taking that pressure off for a second and being like, okay, like mentally, I can't do this right now. I can't. And then training yourself to push through that and almost understand yourself to an extent where, okay, I need to take a step back for a second and breathe. Even during a drill, I would get overwhelmed. Like, I'd be doing stuff and I'm like, oh, I missed that one. I missed that one. I have to get 10. And just taking a breath. Okay, recentering.
Mm,
It's not the end of the world. And if you're struggling mentally, I think it's important not only to reach out, but just to know you're not alone. And there's so much pressure as an athlete, and there's just so much drive too. And it's not disappointing if you need to take a minute. Nobody will be disappointed in you for being like, I'm not okay, or this game was
right.
hard for me specifically, or just beating on yourself, just talking about that. Because nobody's perfect and nobody is 100% the ideal, whatever. So just recognizing that you're not alone and it's okay, and talk to somebody and it actually will help, or even just take a breath and remember, hey, it's just one practice, it's one drill. Even if it's not good, you'll probably do it again in a week. So it'll be okay. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love that so much. Thank you for sharing all of that. And you're so right. No one's disappointed. In fact, they're probably impressed. And you influence other people when you speak up and do that, because there's somebody else who's thinking, oh, I need to take a breath, or I need to talk to someone. And when one person does it, you give that space for other people to say, it's okay for me to do it too. So I really love that you're doing that. And anybody right now who's listening, I don't care if you ever listen to anything else I say, go back and listen to that part that Lexie that's why I was quiet, letting her just go on, because that whole spiel that you just said is exactly what an athlete coming in, a current athlete, a coach, you need to hear that. And sometimes we don't realize it, especially on the tough days. We forget. So thank you for sharing that. So before we move to our last question, tell everybody just what you're doing right now and then what your future goal is. And then I promise I will let you go. I'm not going to keep you here forever. I know it's the end of your winter break.
So I'm in my last semester for my undergrad in psychology, Bachelor of Science. I'm going to look into master's programs for forensic psychology specifically, which is basically behavioral analysis, working with criminals and things, forensic interviewing, and kind of just learning more about how that happens and how your brain twists in ways that make people do those kinds of things almost. Being able to analyze what kind of person would do what kind of crime. Like Criminal Minds, but not as jazzy, I guess.
Gotcha.
The psych part of it. Just kind of looking, I guess, to do big girl things now, like get another place, get another job, get into a master's program, just kind of do that, move on, and graduate, hopefully. So,
I'm sure. Are you supposed to be graduating this spring, or when are you supposed to graduate?
With my undergrad in May. This May.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, it's coming. I'm excited for you. And I'm laughing a little bit when you said do big girl things. I'm still figuring out those big girl things, but I'm excited for you. And don't forget to always let yourself go back and do those young, fun things too, because you need them. It doesn't have to be all big girl things.
It goes quick. That's one thing I'll say is I remember being a freshman, like so much time. And now I'm like, oh, wow. Like
here it is, right?
Okay.
We are going to move on to the last question. And this question is new for this season. So you didn't have this one when I got to chat with you season 3. If you had the chance to either go back to any day or moment or forward to any day or moment, where do you think you would head and what are you going to do that day?
I don't think I would go forward just because I wouldn't know what's going on. So I'd be like, how did I get here? How did I get to this point? And then in my life, personally, I actually I don't know if I would go back anywhere specific just because where I'm at now, I've tried to be content and not regretting anything. I did what I did at that time because of who I was at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know, but if I could, maybe just back to when I was real young and things were, I went to my grandma's house, swim in the pool all day, and that was the biggest issue I had the entire day. And then she made me lunch. So,
right. What are we having for lunch? Yeah.
Take a break and just remind myself the viewpoint I had as a kid to where everything's not necessarily simple, but seeing more positives and being able to just see that good in everybody. And yeah, so maybe that.
Pretty cool. I think that's a great answer. Living in the present moment. So you're not really wanting to either do both. I'm here for all of that. And you know what? I think that swimming in the pool, what's grandma making for lunch? That's a way for you to go back when you're doing those big girl things and remind yourself, just have like whatever grandma used to make for lunch sometimes, that's a way to keep that. What is it?
TV. Like, ew, I don't want to watch this. That was my biggest, come on.
Right. Exactly. I love it. Great answer. Well, Lexie, thank you so much for sharing all of your epic wisdom. I knew you'd be dropping some, not surprised at all. I wish you the best in the end of your journey at Penn State Brandywine, and it's an exciting path ahead. I'm kind of glad you didn't take a peek of it because I don't want you to miss anything with that last answer there. And I'm going to be watching as you go, cheering you along, and I'm excited for you. Thank you for hanging out today.
Thank you so much. I love talking with you. It's always great.
Yeah, definitely reach out if I can help you in any way. I love my Nittany Lions. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us today on The Champion Within. Go crush your week, and we will see you next week.
Thank you for hanging out with Kate today. And whether you're going to coach, teach, cheer from the sidelines, or hitting the field yourself, remember, mindset is everything. Don't forget to follow the show for the latest episodes, as we all need a little extra motivation, humor, and sanity in our busy lives. Now, go and unleash your champion within you, one step at a time. We're always rooting for you.